About time to get started. I want to say thank you to everybody who can be here in 3 dimensions in the room, and also all the folks online. I have to give a shout out to Quality Matters for doing an outstanding job, as always, to allow virtual access to the conference. I think this is a model that we need to carry forward and demand at other conferences and on our campuses as well. So I appreciate that. Today, we are going to talk about a project that I've done in the past in my undergraduate research methods courses. And it is something this time that became extra special because it captured some of the things we're hearing at the conference about getting that student voice and getting revisions to some program things that we can do to better accommodate student needs. And I'm not alone in this endeavor. I was joined by one of my undergraduate students. She is a spring graduate. And even after graduation, she's been working with me on this project. So I am Andria Schwegler. I am the instructor of record for the undergraduate research methods class. I am also very recently had the opportunity to become chair of the counseling and psychology department where I work. Yes, thank you. Jury's still out. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing yet. But one of the things that makes me really excited about it is that I'm remote to our institution. And so being able to have a leadership position when you're not physically on campus is huge. So I'm hoping that this is a way to open doors. And so let's see what we can do with it. I'm joined today by my student. She could not be here today. She had a previous engagement, but what I have tried to do is include some quotes from her on the slide so you can hear her voice. And that's the whole point of this, is to bring that student voice up and elevate it and put it in front of folks. And she helped other students share their voice also. All right, Jessica, I know you're out there watching. I hope I make you proud. For the learning outcomes today, we're going to talk a little bit about some characteristics of high quality learning. And I've had an opportunity to do a deep dive on this, so I want to share a little bit of that background with you. I also want to talk about an example of what we can do to make class assignments have impact beyond the classroom, consistent with the theme. And I would also like to encourage you, brainstorm maybe a little bit on ways that you can use some of the things that are already happening on your campus to make things better for students on campus, regardless of where they live. Oops. All right, quality learning experiences. This is my brain space. This is where I'm approaching this from. I had an opportunity with Quality Matters to write a series of white papers on academic rigor. And what I learned is that a lot of people think academic rigor is a bad word, but it's not, because it does not have 4 letters. It's just misunderstood. Okay, and it's really misunderstood. So what I tried to do was go into the literature from both the teaching and learning perspective and from cognitive psychology, because I am in the psychology department, and try to pull together some common themes and make a definition that is measurable and observable so that we have something that we can make better. So a little bit of information, and I've shared more of this in the white papers, and I've linked those in the references, so you have access to those. But some of the things I found in teaching and learning, Draeger and colleagues, they did a couple of studies looking at faculty members and students and their definitions of what they thought academic rigor was. Faculty had a hard time defining it at first, so they gave them some NSSE items, the National Survey of Student Engagement, to kind of start discussion. And some of the things they found were it needed to be active learning, needed to be meaningful, needed to have high expectations. And similar research was found, or similar findings were found with Sheeny, who did research on a worker education program, asking students and faculty, what is academic rigor there? Some of the implications of Sheeny's work is that academic rigor is a must, because if we lower expectations for students because maybe they didn't come in well prepared, what we're doing is perpetuating inequity for those students. We can't allow that to continue. Instead, we have to provide scaffolding with high expectations and active and meaningful engagement. Looking at cognitive psychology, well, this is my bias. I'm a psychologist, so this is the interesting part. When we think about how we learn best, we don't know. And some examples of that, Cornell and Bjork, they had a study where they gave individuals an opportunity to learn something new, and it was paintings, and this is a particular artist, this is their painting, this is another artist, this is their painting, and they would give them new trials who painted this picture. They had different study conditions. One of them was masked and blocked so that the individuals were learning about all the artist's paintings in one set. So you would learn about Monet and all the paintings, or Picasso and all the paintings. The other study condition was interleaved, where you would learn about Monet and Picasso also, and then it was spaced out over time. So you had the same amount of time to study, but you either did it in a block, a set, or you had it interleaved. When they looked at perceptions of learning, the people who were learning this, they did not like the interleaved space condition. It was too confusing. There was too much to remember and to learn. They liked the mass block better. But when they looked at performance on identification, the performance was superior. So we don't know in the other condition that was interleaved in space. So we don't know how we best learn. So just relying on what we think is the right thing isn't going to cut it. We need to look at that research in cognitive psychology. And then Bjork and Bjork, this is an overview. What I've linked you to, it's not too deep in the weeds in cognitive psychology if that's not your thing. This is an overview that describes 4 research-based techniques that we can use, including the testing effect. The testing effect, very robust. If you have an opportunity to be tested on content, you're going to remember it better than if you spent that same amount of time studying it over again. They also looked at space practice, interleaving, and a couple other techniques. So this is just a little bit of an overview of what we know from research based on how to create meaningful learning experiences for students. Okay. This led me to a definition of rigor, and it's a lot longer than that, so you can read the right papers if you want some more detail. But when I looked at rigor, it's not a static construct. It's not curriculum. It's not a set of learning outcomes. It's what teachers and students are doing in that learning environment. So with teachers, we need to identify research evidence as the basis for instruction. We need to create that in the scholarship of teaching and learning. But then also we need to intentionally craft and sequence instructional materials for our students. Students, they're the ones who have the heavy lifting because they have to create and demonstrate their own interpretation and then support it with evidence. And so when you see the technique I'm going to show you, I hope you can see these elements of academic rigor in it. When we look at the context for academic rigor, it is in a learning space, online, face-to-face, whatever, a training at work. So there's course design and course delivery components that go with it. It is intimately related to the support for learning. The support for learning are all those co-curricular and extracurricular things that you've been hearing about at the conference, tutoring and academic support and study abroad, other things like that. The student learning is an outcome. That's an artifact. That's some demonstration, some product that the students create. And that should be related to the real world. So we don't want bubbling in scantrons on a multiple choice test that nobody ever asks you to do in the real world. The real world also informs the curriculum. And the curriculum is different than the learning context because curriculum, you don't take curriculum and push it down to a lower level to increase academic rigor. Anything can be taught in a more or less rigorous fashion. So it's how you create the context that is the rigor piece. Then the curriculum hopefully is related to the real world. That's what you deliver to students. In the course that I'm teaching that I'm going to show you today, it includes 2 high impact practices. And when I say high impact practices, this is the definition that I'm using. I've linked you to the webpage so that you can take a look at these, but it's going to include writing, instructive courses. We don't call it intense. We call it instructive to put the focus on the teaching part of the writing. And then also undergraduate research. When I laid the academic rigor definition down next to some of the qualities that make high impact practices high impact, we find some of the same qualities. So the high expectations, the ongoing substantive or meaningful interactions, both with your faculty, with your colleagues in the class, and also real world application, and then a synthesis of learning. All right, that was a crash course in academic rigor. Any questions or comments? This is a natural break before I move to the next piece. Okay. Nothing in the room, nothing online. All right, let's keep going. This is my course. It is the research methods. It's required of all undergraduate psychology majors. This is something that can be put into other courses as well. So these ideas are not just linked to this particular context, but what we've done with it plays really well with the course. It does have some prerequisites to it. It has a writing and psychology course and a statistics course that go into it. So it is truly going to be a synthesis of the information they learn in these two courses. It is a 4 credit hour. Most of our classes are 3 credit hour. This is not one that we offer during the shorter summer semester. This is a 16-week only course because you need all of that time. We cap the courses for our writing instructive courses at 20 because it is writing instructive. It's a lot of feedback. It's very high touch. And it is fully online and asynchronous. So when folks say, oh, we have emergency remote instruction, sure, but you can also do asynchronous and fully online in a way that's really impactful. I do have meetings with students. We use Teams now, whenever it's convenient for them. So I have office hours, sure, nobody ever shows up, but I make plenty of time for students outside of the office hours whenever they come and work with me in small groups. I apologize for this slide. We just turned 3 faculty members loose on revising all of our course learning outcomes, and this is what you get. So this is currently going through curriculum process now, but we are realigning and revising everything. So this is the latest batch, but it's the typical stuff that you would expect to see in an undergraduate class. You have the basic content, research methodology, so the riveting topics like reliability and validity and between subjects designs, that kind of stuff. You also see that students go to the library and they grab scholarly resources and they include the research, they state hypotheses, they work on research design. They use published assessments and they create some of their own assessments to collect their data. They do statistical analyses, they interpret, they draw inferences, they take city training, they submit an IRB protocol, they write an APA style manuscript, they do a presentation and they do peer reviews. So lots of oh yeah. More than 60 weeks, but it is fast. Now, this is not, this is not publishable stuff. Typically, anytime that I do bring a student's presentation to a conference, it's because we've worked on it after the semester has ended. So we get them through and we touch all of the process, and it's not perfect. That's what graduate school is for, right? This is undergrad, but they get that coming out the door and they leave with that sense that if you can do this, you can do graduate school. Let's go. All right, this is how I manage all of that. In the past, before the pandemic, students could work alone if they wanted to, because there are just some folks kind of like me who just like, I'd just rather do my own thing. But during the pandemic, we needed each other. We needed a sounding board. We needed to connect. So I started requiring groups of 2 to 3 students. Worked smashingly well. So I'm going to continue to require that. The beauty of having them work in groups as they design their projects is that it reduces the number that have to go to IRB. We have a small IRB, and when we hit them with multiple projects, they have a super quick turnaround time, but we do need to kind of reduce the number and not send 20 through. It takes approximately 2 weeks. On my syllabus, I give the IRB review 4 weeks because that's what they state in their document. It's never taken that long. I give my students annotated examples because IRB protocol forms are probably not the most intuitive thing. So I have an annotated form where I tell them, write this here, explain this there, so that way they can understand it beyond just the vague instructions that are included. Even though they work in projects for the IRB requirements, there are no group papers. That ends poorly because one person does all the work and, social loafing and all that. So everybody writes their own paper, revises their own paper. So yes, I do have 20 projects to grade and provide feedback on, but it goes a lot more smoothly doing that instead of trying to have the students share the work. And then for their sources, they are allowed to use things on the internet because we're trying to teach web information literacy through the program. So if you have them just pull things out of the library, if they lose access to the library resources when they graduate, well, then you haven't done them any favors by navigating the internet. So they have to use both and they apply those skills that they've learned. All right, this is what it looks like for course design. In week 1, they are in discussion forums, identifying what they want to be when they grow up. What kind of projects do you want to research this semester? They select their topic, and in the first week, they're writing a research article summary. So, by the second week, they're in the library. And they've done this in prior classes, so it's not new. They complete the online information literacy modules. We have just moved that to a lower level course. so that they do a refresher in this class. So it's already something that's familiar to them. They complete the city training so that we can get through the IRB process it is required. They submit their IRB protocol form, and then they do it again because we never get that right on the first time. And for those, because it is pass-fail for the course, it's not a graded assignment. I'm very helpful on those. I help them write it. I make sure it gets right. And then we go back and forth with the IRB and they go through me. I'm the primary investigator. We use an online survey tool. All of these have to be exempt. And so we use Qualtrics for our online survey tool. I make sure, and they revise it, but then I go through and make sure it's identical to what we submitted to the IRB. And then this activity with the integrated summary, I found that if you give them separate article summaries to write as they're building their introduction section, it reads like a grocery list: eggs, milk, butter, right? No connection. So what I've done is I've changed these two in week 8. They do 2 and they have to write them together. So it's a synthesis already when they turn that in. What is similar? What is different? Take these 2 articles and compare them in some meaningful way. And that is a step toward creating an integrated synthesis for the introduction section. By this point, we have IRB submission and we're under review, so they can write their methods and then they add their references from the introduction section, and then we collect data. There's 2 weeks here because our IRB is so fast. We always have more than 2 weeks to collect data through Qualtrics, so we're very fortunate on that. They start doing their data analysis. This is where those meetings come in with the small groups, and because we use Teams, we're able to record them and students go back and watch them over and over and over. So you don't have to make them come to a lecture. They want to look at these because we clean the data, we analyze the data, and then they resubmit it because the analyses are never right the first time, and that's fine. At the end of the class, they pull all of the assignments together. They include all of the feedback that I've given them through the semester, and they have one integrated document. They see it for the first time around week 14-ish, and they are amazed that they've done a 25-page paper. Because it doesn't, I mean, it feels like a lot of work, but when you tell them you have to write a 25-page paper, it's overwhelming. But when they go through all of the steps in small pieces and they put it together, it's like, wow, look what I did. And a lot of students are so proud of that work that after they get the feedback on the integrated draft, they ask, can I do it again? Can you look at it just one more time? So I offer some nominal extra credit at the end of the semester that I never advertise for those who want to do it again. Because once they get this done, they want their parents to read it. They want to use it for grad school applications. So I help them make it just a little bit better to take it with them after the class. And then they submit posters, PowerPoint kind of poster. We share it in a discussion forum, and they provide feedback on each other for peer review. Oh, okay. Any questions on the course design piece? Yeah, it's a lot. But it's worth it because this is what happens. All right, this is Jessica's story. She walked into the class unsuspecting any of this was about to happen, right? It's just on the degree plan, we have to do this class. Well, as she's coming in and I'm listening to students in that very first week in the discussion forum, I'm keeping an eye out for what the projects are going to be, because it's my job to have this academic rigor to connect what they want to do to the real world. So if I see them in the introduction forum, they want to be a marriage and family therapist, I'm going to push them in direction of variables that will help them as a marriage and family therapist when they get in grad school. So here, she is talking about stressors related to being in college. And the quotes, I know it's text heavy and I apologize, but like I said, I wanted her voice here today. These are her words. I decided to go back to college after being out for a couple of years. I found it stressful. I wanted to see how many other students were dealing with stress, especially since we were in a pandemic. And then she identified support resources. I was fortunate enough to be able to get mental health services outside of school through benefits associated with my job. But some students don't work full time. They don't have these benefits. They may not work at all. And so how many students are using the support resources on campus? So this is coming from a place of genuine concern for herself and for others. And how can I help? Well, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, it's a good question. How many students are using these things? We do have them. And they are online and they are on campus. Let's check it out. So she started her background research. And what does she find but an amazing meta-analysis? All undergraduates find meta-analyses, right? She found a great meta-analysis indicating that mental health prevention programs are helpful for college students. She had other things as well related to the pandemic and the stressors associated with that. She stated her hypotheses and that she wanted to look at stress levels and GPA, expecting that those undergoing more stress had lower GPA, and then school satisfaction. Maybe there was a difference there too associated with stress. And then we were thinking that students who had a lot of stress, they would be the one using our support services. Maybe the ones who had lower stress didn't need it. So we went through the procedure. We followed the IRB protocol form. It was an exempt project, and we started doing online data collection. For her materials, we used some canned demographic questions, some that had been previously approved by the IRB, so those were easy to get through. But she identified the college student stress scale. This is in psych tests, so a very helpful database for identifying these things. And then she also found the school satisfaction scale. Part of the class is creating assessments, because one of the benefits of learning is doing something and then having to wrestle with the data you get back. So these are not going to be as valid and reliable and have all those statistics behind them, but man, they provide good learning experiences. So it's okay if not all of the assessment measures are perfect. So we looked at the use of and satisfaction with the support resources that our university offers. We included the Writing Center, tutoring services, the research support through the library, student wellness and counseling, and student success coaching. Then we had an open-ended question: what do you need? What would you like to see? We did not get all 126 participants in the spring semester. We had, I can't remember exactly now, but it was around 50 or 60. It was enough to do data analysis with, but we left the study going so that we could talk about it at this conference. And because this has huge implications for what we're doing at the department level. So we continued to collect data until about 2 weeks ago. We wound up with 126 students. You can see that these are adults. The average age is around 31-ish. Many of them are married. Some of them do have children, and most of them do work. So we have adult learners here, some of them with a lot of responsibility. We are an upper level institution, so that we have junior and senior level courses and graduate courses. So we were not expecting a whole lot of freshmen and sophomores. We were expecting a lot of juniors and seniors. So this is who we were targeting. Some of them, most of them were enrolled full-time, some part-time, and they had a GPA. Went from 0 to 4. So as school satisfaction, pretty high on school satisfaction looked at overall as a group. When we look at the stressors that our sample is facing, academic matters top the list, and then financial matters are next. And then some more general difficulties and struggles with personal goals, because we are dealing with adult sample. Being away from home was not really relevant for our students. So to test the hypotheses, we created high and low stress groups. We excluded the folks who were right at the midpoint, but we included those below the midpoint in the low stress, those above it in the high stress. When we looked at GPA, we didn't find any significant differences. And this is self-reported GPA. This is not GPA from the university, so there could be a little cushion in there, perhaps. Or maybe there's just no difference with the stress level. But what we did find was school satisfaction. Those with low stress reported higher satisfaction scores than those with higher stress. Okay. This was the eye-opener. When we looked at the use of student support services, we found the students aren't really taking advantage of what we're offering them. When we look at the Writing Center, 61% have never used the Writing Center. We had 3.2% who use it often. And we have a lot of WI courses, writing instructive courses. For tutoring, 82.5% of students don't use tutoring. Library research, 50% don't use that. I can't imagine getting through school without using the library. Student wellness and counseling, there's your whopping 90%. This was surprising to us. And then student success coaching, 85% don't use that either. So we have these resources. We have half of our sample that we categorize into a high stress group, but students aren't using the support resources. So we couldn't split this by high and low stress to see who's using what. We couldn't test the hypothesis because folks aren't really taking advantage. This was a concern. We did look to see repeated measures ANOVA. We changed up the analysis a bit to see, are there significant differences? What are students using? Yes, The library was significantly higher than the other ones. The writing center was next. And then when it came to the last three, tutoring, coaching, and wellness, those did not differ from each other. And then when we look at satisfaction scores of the people who did use the services, they're satisfied. We're doing a good job providing it if we could just get folks in the door to use it. So satisfied with these things. We couldn't really run analyses on there. I did take a peek. There are no significant differences. So one is not any better than the other as far as satisfaction. Let's look at student recommendations. This is the open-ended question we ask. What do you need? What can the university provide you that would be most helpful? And what do they say? Counseling. But we have that. Yeah, and 90% of the folks aren't using it, but 25% of the folks who answered the question asked for it. And if you look, 81% of the students had something to say. That's a lot out of the sample. I mean, that's to have to type something in more than click a button. Yeah, I was excited about that. So we've got a topic that students want to talk about and they want to ask for it. They also ask for tutoring. We have that. They're not taking advantage. And it's not that it's only on campus. It's on campus and online. When we saw this data, we thought, okay, we have some concerns. So it went in a little bit different direction than what we were anticipating. What can we do to help students who need these counseling services use them that we're providing? And what about tutoring as well? And this is a quote from Jessica. Here's her voice again. After reviewing the results of my project, I realized students needed to be informed about the resources without having to search the school website. I began to wonder, do students even know these resources exist? And if they didn't, how can the university ensure it's not going to be an issue going forward? Resources that are provided to ensure success need to be advertised in a way that would be easily accessible for students. Hear, hear. We thought we were doing okay. Apparently not. When you ask the students, we thought we were doing okay. They didn't, not so much. All right, questions or comments on that piece? That was the undergraduate student research project. This is what we're doing with it beyond the classroom. Any questions? Isn't it fun? Oh, I'm so excited to be here to show this off. All right, here we go. So what did we do? We took this to program faculty and we said, hey, this is our psychology department. That's the only department I have. I can't totally change the world, but at least we can start somewhere, right? So we created a new class. There was a 1 credit hour hanging out in students' degree plan that was for any level elective. Well, let's be a little bit more intentional about that 1 credit hour and let's deliver something to students that they might need. So we created a 1 credit hour class. Is going through our curriculum process right now. We wanted to engage students, create a sense of community. It is a synchronous online class. The curriculum, everything in bold, is the stuff that came straight out of the survey that students aren't using. So time management, that was something that they asked for. Tutoring services, mental health and wellness, researching and writing. So we included this in the curriculum for the course. The assessment, there are some personal reflections, there are some essays writing. Most of this class is going to be get out there and get in touch with these services. So it's an active participation kind of class, and it takes care of that 1 credit hour. So we didn't have to add anything to the degree plan. We just repurposed an elective that wasn't being as well utilized as it could have been. What else do we do? Getting them in the front door with that 1 credit hour class right as they come in their first semester, but that's not all. We included it through the required curriculum in the program, and we tried to align it in a way that it made sense for the existing course content. So all the courses that you see here are part of the core in the psychology degree plan. We do have plenty of electives that students can choose from, but we embedded them because we wanted them to make sure that they got something. So in our human lifespan class, one of the very first classes that students take, we're going to have a research presentation from our librarians to say, hey, here's some databases. Here's what you do. Come on in and let's integrate that into a project. For mental health resources, our student counseling service folks are coming in and talking to folks in our abnormal psych class. For writing resources, our writing center is amazing, and we are embedding that into our WI courses, our writing instructive courses. And then for tutoring, no better place for that than stats, right? Got to go at least figure out what it is and ask a couple of questions using our tutoring resources and statistics, which we're hoping will also bring into research methods. Once they have their foot in the door, they can use it for this class also. And we're working on a student success initiative. We are currently hiring faculty members. One of those faculty members in the department is going to have a one course release. And that one course release, 3 hours, is going to go to be student success coordinator at the department level. That is going to involve pulling reports out of our information system and finding out those students who are registered but not enrolled and calling them to go, hey, is everything okay? What can we do for you? Being that point of contact for students, that safety net, if you will. Do you need something? Let's make this referral. Let's make that referral. If students get in trouble and they have to go through the academic appeal process, if they've been suspended and they want to come back in, this individual will be at those meetings to provide support and to see what that student needs and connect them with resources. So this is something that is brand new. It is an emerging position. We are also trying to get that at the college level. At the college level, it would be interacting with our university level services, also creating maybe tutorial guides and putting them on our webpage for students, and just providing those general connection between the university supports at the college level, and then interacting with that department level person who has that high touch with the students in the department. This is my attempt at our rudimentary org chart. This is what we look like right now. We have a department chair with program faculty nested underneath, not surprising. And then we have an office manager, and our college level advisors are over there with the administrative associates. And so we have this big gap between college level advising and program faculty. Adding these coordinator positions, we hope will fill that gap in between faculty and advising, so that we have the student success coordinator who talks to the university level and who works with our department level folks and who gets our college level advisors more intimately connected with the ongoings of the department. We'll see. This is a work in progress, but we are making the hire at the department level because I can't control the college. Give me time. And then there's one more thing that I don't have a slide for because it's so new. I didn't know if it would happen or not. We are repurposing our psych lab. Okay, we have a psych lab, we have the physio measurements and all that stuff. Well, another group on campus needed a classroom. We were currently in a decommissioned classroom. They had their eyes on our room. I said, oh, you need a classroom? Guess what I need? You can have the classroom, but I need a way to connect students to our psych club meetings. So can I have a computer that works? And a television that we can connect to a Teams meeting. And guess what? I just got it. So we are moving one floor up, and we are going to have cubicles in the back with lockers to store our physio equipment for the psych lab. In the front, we're getting a conference table with a computer that works and the TV, so that we can have guest speakers talking to students who want to be on campus. We have guest speakers online. We can connect the students online to these meetings. In the past, it was only the students who could be on campus and in that room who could be in the psych club and participate. Now it's going to be anybody who wants to do it. So they're working on that. We're hoping to roll that out in the spring semester. And here's another wrinkle. What started out as an undergraduate student research project in a class, we're now layering it into continuous improvement plans. We have pretest data in that study that we just talked about that we can use as a benchmark to see what kind of difference we're making with these initiatives. So the plan now is we have the pretest from the spring. We are currently planning and piloting. We're making the room revisions. We're hiring the faculty member for the coordinator piece. We're going to roll out that in the fall. The course gets through the curriculum process. We'll teach that in the fall. The post-test, we're targeting for maybe the spring 2026 semester. Maybe I'll have a student in my research methods class who wants a piece of that. So we're self-licking ice cream cone, right? Okay. So we can get that data. We can compare the stress scale. Maybe it'll decline a little bit. School satisfaction, what we're really hoping to push the needle on is that use of those resources. That's what we really want to see. But we have all the other data, so let's take a look at it. And then we can ask the question again, what do you need as a student to be successful here? So continuous improvement, not what I expected the project to turn into. We have a question in the back. There's a mic for you.
Why post test so late? Why don't you do it earlier to get data faster?
I could do it. Why would I do the post test so late? I could do it sooner than later, but I've learned being in higher education that organizational change is very slow. So I wouldn't mind doing it sooner if we could get data. A couple of years, I think we could cycle through the students so that everybody had that opportunity to go through the psychology major seminar, which we affectionately are calling PMS. So once everybody has had PMS, then we'll be able to assess it at the end. So I wouldn't be against having it earlier. Any other questions? All right, so here's the integration. It's a lot of information to cover, but this is the overall plan. If you have your heels dug deep into quality learning experiences, you can take what we know about alignments through the quality matters standards and through academic rigor. We can create a coherent learning context for our students to engage in. We can provide those faculty and instructional supports that they need to be successful. We can craft course assignments with an eye beyond just the classroom. We don't have to stay in that silo. We can look up at the academic master plan. We can look at department needs. We can look at student needs, and we can create course assignments that allow students choice, that have real world relevance, and that are applicable beyond just what we're doing in the classroom. When we align our assignments with ongoing initiatives, we are recognizing that student voice and the value of their contributions. All of this started with this student project. How impactful and powerful is that, not just for the student who was involved with it, but for all the students who are going to be part of this in the future? So incorporating that student work to meet data demands. Having that assessment data, I'll reiterate what was in a talk earlier, having that assessment data is huge. It is critical. It is key to get what you need. So now we have that data and we can look and measure those changes and we can advocate for what we need. And then also, when you're doing this, seek inspiration from your students, because we may be in higher education and have been there for years. When students have a taste of it, what they have to say is really amazing. This is Jessica. I have a passion to help those who struggle with their mental health due to my personal struggles. I know how much it means to have resources that help to navigate through life, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or depressed. This research project helped me to realize that awareness is needed and it is necessary. I want to be a person to spread awareness, and this project helped me to pave the way for change at the university. I am excited for the changes to come, and I believe that the student success rate will increase. I am proud of the initiatives that the university is taking to help students to be successful and for paying attention to the needs of the students. I teach for free because of that right there. So you can't ask for better than that. So to have a student continue to work with you after she's graduated and be proud of the contribution and know it's making a difference is huge. So, and this is something that it's a high impact practice embedded in the required curriculum, and it started out just as something to do in a class. All right, as promised, the references, I've linked it to everything. And then what questions do you have? It's a huge undertaking. It is the most challenging class that I teach. I teach it once a year. We rotate it through faculty. And it is extremely time consuming, more time consuming than my grad courses. Yes, ma'am.
Great study, as always.
Yeah. So
My only concern now is, are we doing enough? And so my question to you is, where in your LMS are all of those offices and all of those services listed? Because, you know, as per QM standards, we must have them present somewhere in the course shell. So I'm just wondering about that.
And that is an excellent question. And we look at A&M International for inspiration for doing that, because your courses are amazingly well designed. We have a lot of work to do as an institution to pull resources together for our students. So yes, these all need to be linked. Some of them we're still learning, faculty are still learning what resources we actually have. So in our LMS, they are not linked in our LMS yet. We do have them on a web page, and this other web page, and that other web page. And so what I did is I went through as part of this work, and I scraped our web page. I searched everything I could find, and I created a Word document, and I stuck it in my classes for my students. These are student success resources, and here's all the hyperlinks to all those web pages. That's something that we're working on at the university level. The online folks can hear.
Thank you. So I'm at a community college, a two-year school. They also have some four-year degrees, but I'm SOCH. And so our dean is trying to push us to do undergraduate research. That's why I'm in here. And that's a 4,000 level course. This would be a 2,000 level course. So I'm going to gut your presentation and take it all down. But I'm just wondering, like, in your mind really quick, if I can pick your brain, what would be the things you think I could get rid of, but just still keep the integrity for my 2,000 level, community college folks?
Okay, that is a great question. How can we scale this back based on what students you have time for in the student level? Because you certainly don't want to do this at the sophomore level, because then I have nothing when they get to the senior level, right? Save a little something for us. What I've done successfully in the past when I was teaching this face-to-face, and I really had this course ramped up probably more than it needed to be, I did like the Stroop effect. So I would have an in-class demonstration, and all of the students were their own research participants. And so I collected data from them, and I did this across multiple semesters so that I could have the data from the class, regardless of if it was only 15 students, we still had data to analyze. I would add that together. Then I would hand them the data set and say, okay, this is the little study we just did in class. Now we're going to run the analyses on it. And it doesn't have to be, using SPSS like we have. If they can do a few things by hand, getting mean, standard deviation, some central tendency measures, and then using that. So you don't have to go all out necessarily to the IRB. You can have an in-class and it's not IRB reviewed research, so you can't present it anywhere, but it can be a class demonstration, and you can pad the data at first until you collect real data, then let them analyze it, and then they can show it off to their colleagues and have it not as a research presentation, but sharing it with other students.
So we have interdisciplinary classes. So they're trying to get, I want to do social stats together, right? I'm sorry. So I want to put sociology and statistics together, but they have a person who's doing like an art and biology linked class. So they're looking at, I don't understand it, but it's beautiful, right? It's artistic, but it's looking at cellular or something or other. And so they have undergraduate research, like presentations, poster presentations and whatnot. So that would be the goal, right? I could use that as the goal.
Absolutely. We also have a Warrior Week on our campus, and we have a student research day as part of that, where we make posters, we hang them up. It's typically in the library or in a hallway, and students can talk about it. If you want to do something like that, where you take it outside of a class context and call it research, you may want to take one IRB protocol form that you create, lay out what you're going to be doing for your class project, have it reviewed as an exempt project, and then you can call it research, and you can present it and participate in that. Oh, yes. That'd be wonderful to get those initial experiences, because they are super impactful. And when students see their work somewhere else, it's amazing. Like when we get feedback for clarification from the IRB, the students are amazed. Like, you don't know all the answers as the teacher? No, I get feedback on my stuff all the time. I have to clarify stuff all the time. So when an external review body reviews the teacher's work, and then they see how it's dealt with, it shows that you're connected to something bigger, and it's not just a class. The class is not the end all be all.
Thank you. This is pretty awesome. And there's so many lessons to be taken away from this. So I'm wondering, within Central Texas, are you, I don't know if there's ways that you have a protocol where faculty present to each other sort of their best practices, or a faculty brown bag, or, I mean, how are you sharing this internally with your own peers at your own institution?
Okay, we've gotten to a tipping point. We have a couple of faculty members who are really doing this, and I'm not the only one doing this. We have it where every faculty member teaching this course in the department is doing this. And we made it a collaborative effort, and that's where all the revising of the learning outcomes came from. So we're each doing it. As far as sharing it out widely, I'm part of a high impact practice initiative that we are just getting started on campus. We have some support. I have like writing advocates for our WI courses. We have service learning initiatives. We're adding one for undergraduate research. And we're calling it faculty student research because we don't want to ignore our grad students, since we are upper level only and we have those grad students. So you don't think of high impact practices typically at the graduate level. We assume they're good, right? Assuming gets us in trouble. So we're including our grad courses with that. So we are hoping to offer a stipend so that faculty can start doing this more. At the A&M system, we have a thing called Pathways. Pathways is a research presentation, and we try to send student representatives, and there's voting and judging. So there's a lot of incentive now to try to push the scale for faculty to really engage with our students to do research. We're just starting that. Super stoked.
I know we're at QM, but I just have to ask, are you guys involved in the Council of Undergraduate Research, CUR, the other professional organization, by chance?
We are not, but they are on my radar. I have no idea, but yes, I don't know what you just said, but I'm on, so I'll do that. Counselor for CUR.
If you want me to share, I mean, there's a lot I can say right now. And I don't.
Yeah, I don't want to change topics, but Nancy Hensel's book about undergraduate research at community colleges, I would strongly recommend. I don't want to do a plug right now, but my name is Jennifer Coleman, and I had a book come out last year, Coleman Hensel, Nancy Hensel also, and Bill Campbell, about undergraduate research in online, hybrid, and virtual classes that would be very aligned with what you're doing. And a CUR counselor, CUR has a bunch of divisions. One is psychology, and there are CUR counselors who come together and inform the discipline. And yeah, so it would just be right up your alley.
Thank you for the pro tip. And I enjoyed your session yesterday. Very aligned. That's why I ran up to you at the end of it saying, we have to talk. All right, anything else? I am super excited about this. So if you want to talk to me at all, there's my email address. The last name's a little tricky, so take a picture of it. But talk to me about academic rigor, talking to me about high impact practices, talk to me about undergraduate research, whatever. I'm up. Thank you.